Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Brenda Murphy from Sail Away Learning and Academy doing another session of Strong at Home. And today we have Carol Slatus, I'm sorry, I'm stumbling this afternoon, with us. And we've been talking for some time about bridging the home to school divide for parents and children and how to form better relationships for parents when their children are at home and with the schools. And Carol is a senior school counselor, and she has been giving us some amazing points. One of the things that is important is in our communications and conversations, not only between our children and ourselves, and including the school and our teachers in it. And of course, to be strong at home, there's a lot that is important for us to support our children and help them to grow. And giving feedback, and sort of that may be another term for it, is constructive criticism, but maybe feedback is a much better term. I want us to talk about today how we can be proactive with our children to give them the kind of feedback that will help them grow. Where on earth would we start to learn how to give our children productive and powerful feedback?
Well, I'm happy to be back with you again today. And to answer that question about where to start, I think just even using the term feedback is a great start, and making sure that your child or whoever it is you're talking with understands where you're coming from. And when you use the word feedback, I have heard the word constructive criticism before. And it's not that I dislike it, but I prefer using the word feedback, because feedback is saying, here's where I'm coming from to help you grow. So in terms of who can give that feedback, there's lots of people who provide feedback to our children. But I know for me, I went from being a school counselor to suddenly being teacher to my children during these current times with the coronavirus and being at home. So I had to kind of give a lot more feedback, and sometimes it went well and sometimes it didn't, but we can talk a little bit more about that today.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad to have an updated description of what we really want to provide to our children, both as educators, as you said, as well as parents, because this is really a major part in developing who they're going to be. The way that feedback is given, I like that so much better, because even constructive criticism, it has that critical feel about it, which is kind of negative, but feedback is a very neutral term, and it doesn't have any kind of emotional or connotational baggage to it. So I did put up there just briefly who can give that feedback. And so let me look again if I have that. I'll put that up there. Get that. Nope. Where is my sharing button? It should be there. Thank you all for bearing with my technology. We were talking about I am a digital immigrant, and even sometimes I act like a digital native, which means somebody who grew up with technology. Sometimes the immigrant still shows through. Couldn't find the right button. So thank you all for bearing with me in that. So again, in the who is different people, and we're going to look at these 5 different W's, and if we don't get through them in 15 minutes, then we will certainly continue with another conversation, because these things are so important. And I am going to find this. There we go.
There we are. Yeah. So, I know today a lot of the people who are watching this are parents and stuff, but it's important to understand that lots of people can be giving feedback, and making sure that your children understand that feedback can come from lots of different people, and that their intention is good. So when you're taking a look at what it is they're saying, sometimes it doesn't it needs to be coming the same exact message from lots of different people. I've had countless phone calls from parents who they call and they say, "What did you say? What did you say to them?" And then I say what I say, and they go, "Well, that's what we said." And I said, "I know, but I'm not their parent." And so it's important that they're getting similar messages from lots of different people. So I think it's important to ask the question, why is it that sometimes feedback is not well received from a parent? I know I can think back to when I was a child and my dad was a musician, or is still a musician, and I played the same instrument that he played. So he tried to help me with playing the trumpet, and it never really went over super well. And so I think I probably needed to get a different teacher, because there was just like this dynamic between the child and the parent that's different than kind of an outsider.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's like, why would my child really react to you in such a better way? And sometimes here at Sail Away, when we've had students enroll in our micro school or in our tutoring services, it's the same thing, that parents, we said the same thing or tried to do the same thing, but they weren't able to get through. So it's important that there is that same message. And sometimes, depending on the situation, it's important for them to speak into and give that feedback, maybe not the parent, although we want to do that. And I think that that's important, that we think about how we should be giving that feedback.
Yeah, I think how we do it, there's so much emotion that's between a parent and a child, and there's the child really wanting to make you proud and feeling like you're criticizing them, that they're a disappointment to you or anything like that. So I think it can be diminished by when we get to the how part, how you present it, but it also sometimes is just that dynamic of you and your child. And also, are you being hypercritical as well? So it kind of could come from them or from you.
So let's look at when and where would be a good time for us to talk about when is a good time and where is a good time to engage in this feedback that we need to hear from someone and that we need to share with our parent, with our student, and with our children.
So when we're giving feedback, as you can see here, it's really important, if someone has really heightened emotion, that's not going to be the time for that to really sink in. I know in an earlier session, we had done something about check-ins and stuff. So it kind of getting back to that point, you want to find the right time. And if someone's emotions are really heightened, that would be a good time to say, let's just take a moment. Let's just take some space, some time. I know my two children I know you've got several children, Dr. Murphy, but my two children are very different from each other.
Yes.
And one of them, it's just like highly emotional and stuff. And I know as a counselor, but I also know just from experience that that's not the best time for me to have some sort of breakthrough. So to say, just take a moment and go calm down, and then let's return to this and talk to it. That can be really important to do. You want to be able to regain your ability to think clearly yourself and for your child. Another thing about when is you want to give feedback often. So, and that should be positive and negative feedback. So too often our students and our children hear negative feedback more than they hear positive feedback. And it should be the opposite. They should be hearing a lot of positive feedback, and then they're going to be open to the feedback that's negative as well. So you want to have that balance of the two. And last but not least, in terms of where you are, you want it to be somewhere private. I can think of a lot of sporting events or something where you just feel embarrassed for the child who's being, the parent is doing it as feedback, but it's really not the appropriate time or place. I think, the car ride home is a good time to talk about opportunities for growth and things like that. But in a public forum, it's really just humiliating for the person.
Yes, I agree completely. And I apologize for more technology, that I failed to do a critical thing when you're doing a live, is to turn your phone off, and I failed to do that. So,
no worries.
So we have a lot of things that we are working with. So that's some personal feedback. And as an educator, one of the things I think that help our children to develop well academically is the positive feedback especially for children that are struggling, that they know within themselves how difficult it can be and how often they don't get things right.
Yeah.
So they really thrive on the positive. So and again, it's when that you give the feedback that's important. But with many of our kids, like your sensitive child, giving them positive constantly, because they are giving themselves such negative feedback about everything that they do. So for those of us who are powerful and important in their lives, parents especially, and coaches and teachers, and others who are close to children, giving an extra dose of positive feedback is only a benefit, can never be a negative. I don't think you can I'm sure you can give too much positive feedback when it doesn't reflect reality.
I think if you give only positive, that's where it can be a negative.
Yeah.
If you only give positive and they're not used to hearing that they've done something wrong, but it needs to come from a place of love. Like, you've done something wrong, but here's what can improve it. Here's how we can grow from it. So seeing failures as an opportunity for growth is huge. And, you speak to a lot of the students who I work with who have a lot of anxiety and stuff. It comes from within themselves. There's a lot of negative self-talk and a lot of negativity that's going on in terms of critical feedback to themselves within their mind. And I think one of the most powerful things that I have talked to parents about is being mindful of your own self-talk and saying it out loud. So if I'm cooking, let's say, I'm just making an example, but if I'm cooking and I spill something, be mindful of what am I saying to myself, and change it to positive and say it out loud so they hear you modeling your self-talk. So it's going to be crazy a little bit, like mom's talking to herself, but they are listening. Kids are always listening, and they're always picking up on these types of things. So you spill it and you go, oh man, I spilled that. What a mess. Let me just clean this up, and then I'm going to get some more and I'm going to fix it. It's going to be good. It's going to be fine.
Yes, that is so critical, that when we model that positiveness, it really helps enormously with what we're doing with our children. So after we have done the when and the where, I do want to look at the what. And I know we are running out of time on this, so I think that we will have to come back and share the remainder of this very valuable stuff on another session.
Okay.
But this is the what and the how, or at least the beginning of it. So what are we seeing here in the what and the how for our children? We have talked about this, and I love this picture because it gives us a visual cue to keep in mind what we have done. So that was exactly what you were talking about. And I think that that's so valuable, is what they have done well is like the toppings on the hamburger, what they can improve on, and the encouragement for them to keep on doing what you have encouraged them to do and moving forward. So what do you think would be some of the next steps that our parents should be thinking about, that maybe we may want to visit, because I know we have a lot to talk about for feedback, because it is so vital that we do it in a proper way, and how that can help our children to manage their own selves going forward. So are there some things that you would like to add to this part of the conversation? And we'll come back and talk a little bit about more of what we can do in the future.
Yeah, it's a long conversation about the how, but I think one of the biggest things is to evaluate, why are you giving the feedback? Why is it that you're pointing this out? Is it something that has to be pointed out, first of all, too? So sometimes people are giving a little bit too much feedback and a little bit too much, and not giving some time for them to really maybe learn from previous feedback. If they think you're always going to come in, it's kind of like the coach that always is yelling all the time, after a while you're like, they're just yelling, they're just criticizing, they're just on me all the time. So you really want to think about what is the times that this feedback is important and this feedback is going to help them grow, and be a part of that conversation with them. Especially as they're getting older, you want to help them brainstorm and learn how to do this on their own. We want to raise children who are independent and have the problem solving skills and the strength to just make good decisions and do the right thing. So if you include them in that process, eventually they will develop to the point where they can do it on their own.
And that's really the whole point of getting the feedback.
Right.
We want to develop our children to be independent and to project that for them. So with that, we are at the end of our time, and we have so much more to cover. So we will conclude with the same thing, that certainly with feedback really can be the blessing to our children's lives, and that the Lord would bless you and keep you, that the Lord would make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance and give you peace. Thank you, Carol, so much for being with us and sharing this valuable information.
Well, it's to be continued. We'll keep talking, and I hope you all can join us for the next one.
Absolutely.